Welcome once again to Heart of a Shepherd. We are studying two chapters in the book of Psalms today. This is the first video devotional of two. It will be taken from Psalm 141, and then a video that will follow will be a Bible study from Psalm 142. Well, in Psalm 141, I've titled the devotional, My Enemy and My Mouth. I invite you to open your Bible with me to Psalm 141. Well, the title of Psalm 141 states a Psalm of David. Now, knowing the author but not the time or place the song was written, we are really left to our own judgment regarding the circumstances that inspired the psalm. It was undoubtedly a reflection on a moment of danger, most likely written when David fled from Saul into the wilderness. I invite you to consider Psalm 141 in four parts. The first, David's cry for the Lord's favor. Psalm 141, verse 1 and 2. Here we find that David prayed the Lord would, and I quote, make haste unto him, give ear unto his voice. Now that's verse 1. And so, like a mother hastens toward her frightened child, David trusted that the Lord would hear and answer his cry for help. Now he sought the Lord's attention, and he asked that his prayer be as sweet in God's sight as incense, the evening sacrifice. Psalm 141 and verse 2. Now in verse 3 and 4, we see the second part, and it is David's petition for the Lord's help. And so David desired not only to be the object of the Lord's favor, but also that he would be kept from sinning with his mouth. And so David prays in verse 3, set a watch or a guard, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. Indeed, that should be a prayer for all believers. James warned in James 3 and verse 5 and 6 that the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. And so David not only prayed for the Lord to bridle his tongue, but also that he would be kept from following the wicked ways of men in verse 4. Now the third part of our study of Psalm 141 is David's prayer for humility and vindication. Verses 5 and 6. And here we find then that David prayed that the Lord would find in him the humility to heed wise counsel and the meekness to accept rebuke as an excellent oil. Now, he had been the object of lies and slander, but he prayed for vindication. He looked forward to the day when his judges, that is, his persecutors, would hear his words. And now the fourth point of our study, verse 7 through 10. Here we find David's faith in God's grace and deliverance. And so, verse 7, like bones scattered with no grave, David found himself in a desperate, hopeless place. And yet he was committed to keeping his eyes on God in verse 8, trusting that the Lord would not abandon him or leave him alone. Now, praying for protection and vindication, David then yielded himself to the Lord in verses 9 and 10, and he prayed that his enemies would fall into the snares, the traps that they themselves had set for his demise. Well, a closing thought for this first of two devotionals. Among the four parts that we have studied today, I think probably the issue of one's speech might resonate with us all. Although David was on the run and unjustly pursued by an enemy, he was still aware that he would not become, or was still aware that he would not become like his enemy. Therefore, David prayed in verse 3, set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth, keep the door of my lips. And so David prayed that the Lord would guard his mouth against saying anything foolish and be the doorkeeper of his lips. Well, should we not pray and desire the same things? I close with 1 Peter 3 and verse 10, where we read, for he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile. What a great challenge. That is probably for everyone listening to this devotional. Well, a second video devotional will follow, and the focus of it will be Psalm 142. God bless, and bye-bye.